Hey everybody, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Really excited to get the win last week. Back-to-back shutouts for the first time since 1962. It was a great defensive performance. We got a lot of work to do, a lot of room for improvement, and now we get to go and play one of the greatest rivalries in all the Big Ten and all of college football. It should be really exciting. I don't think there's anything more to say about that. With how excited we are, I'm sure Iowa feels the same way. It's an honor to be able to be a part of that tradition, and that's what the Big Ten's all about. And I'm glad we've all kept all those rivalries because this is what college football is all about. It's amazing because you get to see that, Oregon and Oregon State already happened. The Apple Cup already happened. Here we are playing for the Floyd of Rosedale in week 4. Really exciting. But when you have those things that are kept, it's pretty cool that they've been able to do that with college football with all the changes, being able to keep all this the same. So with that, we'll open it for questions.
PJ, what did you think last year's Floyd of Rosedale game did for the rivalry going forward?
Well, I think like anything, when you're looking at rivalries, remember when we first got here, we hadn't beat Wisconsin, I think, for 14 straight years. That's a long time not to beat somebody. And you're calling it a rivalry and you're looking at it and, people have such a desire and passion to bring that rivalry back. And then we were able to do it, which was great. It was great for our fan base. We were not only able to do it, but do it back to back and then lose it and then get it back. And, hopefully rivalries are meant to go back and forth. I'm not sitting there saying I want to lose anything, and nor do they want to lose anything. But I think that's what makes rivalries really special. You even watch Washington State. Just look how excited the Washington State Cougars were after that win. And that's what college football is all about. But I think rivalries are rivalries because they do go back and forth. They're usually border wars, border battles. They're really close. Everybody knows each other. You're recruiting a lot of the same kids. And that's where all the the rivalries started, and we're just honored to be a part of it, and you'd like to be able to have a little bit more balance, as you go forward, and that's what we're working and striving to do all the time here at Minnesota. We're fortunate to have a lot of rivalries, and with some really really good football teams, and when you protect those rivalries, those are huge games, big games against really 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 good opponents.
Maybe an added wrinkle this year to it with everything that went on with the invalid fair catch signal last year?
No, not at all. We were 1-0 last year. That was it. And you know me, I don't carry things over from one year to the next. That game was its own entity. That game had its own 60 minutes for both teams to go a chance to win the football game. And we were able to bring Floyd home. And now we both are 0-0 in this game. And both teams are looking to be 1-0. Somehow, some way.
From what you've seen on tape so far, what are the biggest differences with Tim Lester now calling the plays for the offense, and why has their running game been so good through the first 3 games of the season?
That's a great question. I think when you look at them, they're still Iowa. It's Iowa, and you look at everything that they lean on, and when anything's kind of getting off the tracks, they go right back to what they do and really do well, and that's run the football. I think when you look at Caleb Johnson and what he's been able to do. I think he's one of probably the most underrated backs in all the country. You look at 3 straight 100-yard games. It's what they do. They have a very veteran offensive line. Of course, you got Cade McNamara at quarterback. You got really good tight ends. And, I think the first half, I think they threw it an awful lot, probably more than they probably have in a long time when you're looking at the first game of the year. But I think as you looked at the more data as you go through the next few games, when they get back on track is when they're running the football. And they're running that stretch play, they're running the outside zone. Because that offensive line, you talk about not only experience, but the way they pass things off and the way they communicate and the way they fire off that football. This is probably one of their best offensive lines we've played. So, again, just this game's always won in the trenches, in my opinion, always, since we've been here. We've had a lot of close, tight games with them, one-possession games. But this is a really good football team. But I think when it all is said and done, it's, Kirk Ferentz is still the head football coach of this football team. And you can see his DNA and fingerprint all over it, even as they've made changes to staff members. But you see what they still want to do.
You see any difference in their defense this year?
What they traditionally do?
No, they do what they do. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just say it's a compliment. They do what they do. Are there new wrinkles here and there? Of course, there's new wrinkles, as you continue to evolve, but very similar to what they've always done. They put the ball down and play great defense. They're very sound. They get off their blocks. They can two-gap you. Every single one of them do such a great job, the D-line with the strike and shed. You can't even – a lot of guys can't even – they're so long and big that it's hard to even get into them on some of the blocks. And they do a great job getting off blocks. D-line does a really good job making plays in the backfield, tackles for loss. Linebackers are really good tacklers. The Castro kid's one of the best, I think, players in the country, period. I think he can play anything. And they've got a really good deep secondary who's experienced. So, again, it sounds like a broken record every single year when I talk about this football team because they're always experienced. They're always deep. They always have good trenches. They're very sound in the secondary. On offense, they're running the football. I mean, it feels like Caleb's been there forever, the running back. So, typical Iowa.
Not even bring up last year's game, which ended with 22 points. They've only allowed two defensive touchdowns, like on the defensive side. You've only allowed one. Just what goes into playing this type of game where it's obviously every possession matters, every yard matters?
Yeah, I think it's like anything. It's going to come down to the ball. It's going to come down into the trenches. It's going to come down to who tackles better and who can break some tackles, and then who can create some explosive plays here and there. And that, as I talk about 78%, I mean, those are the three things we always focus on no matter who we play. I think when you play in rivalry games, those just get enhanced. Those become even more important. So I think that's what you're going to see on Saturday night.
If your offensive line is going to have their best performance of the season, what has to happen on Saturday?
They just have to be consistent. They have to be consistent. They have to do a great job communicating. And they just got to play hard-nosed football. And they do. It's not like they don't. They do. They played extremely hard. But, again, as we continue to go through this and mold it together, we just got to continue to have the consistency that we know the guys can have.
How do you assess them in the first half? Obviously, Darius hits the home run in the third quarter, but first half run game.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever as bad as you think or as good as you think. And you go back in it and you're sitting there going, why aren't we, there's 9 guys down in the box. Not only that, if you listen to Coach Jeff's presser afterwards, I mean, his whole thing was stop the run, and they came from everywhere. Their thing was never be in the same place twice, and it was all over the place. I mean, some sound, some not sound. We're talking about people in lots of different gaps and moving and never letting us have a block head on. It was always on the side. They were slippery. They did a really good job of a scheme to be able to stop the run. But we knew if we just, like I said in our press conference at the end of the game, it was more body blows and consistency. I think people in the run game, sometimes think every time you run the ball, you should get 12 yards. Not in today's day and age. Not all the time. Not like that. I mean, you're going to have body blows, and then you saw what Darius can do. And that's what Iowa's always done too. They're consistent, and there's a lot of body blows, and then explosive plays come out. So it's being willing to stick with the run game over and over and over, and that allows a lot of things to happen in the pass game. Which when we throw it, we got to be able to catch it and get us in the right plays. And I think Max has done a really good job of being consistent.
Film of Caleb Johnson, what stands out to you?
Oh man, he's smooth. There's a lot of times he doesn't look like he's moving very fast, but he's running away from everybody. He runs behind his pads really well. He can play the speed game. He can play the power game. He's got great balance, great vision. And he's played so much. And their backs are so fundamentally and technically sound. And that's what makes them all really good is they're a fundamental football team who does all the small details really well over and over and over and over. His footwork is always perfect, The exchanges are always really good. His landmarks are on point. His patience in the run game of being able to stretch something out and hold that block a little longer and get somebody to fit differently, and the ability to stick your foot in the ground and get vertical he's got it all, man. He really does, and he's got the speed to go along with it.
Do you have any update on Justin Wally and